You don't need magic to disappear for a while, because Firestone tires were built for ticking off mile markers. Firestone Destination LE3 tires for 70,000 miles of exploring. Whatever you drive, drive a Firestone.
Gordon Leffler cut his teeth in the tire business working with his father, Duke, at Suburban Tire Auto Repair Centers in the Chicagoland area. Growing up, Gordon and his brothers, Steve and John, busted tires, swept floors, and learned all the aspects of managing a tire shop. Gordon then went off to college, but when Duke was diagnosed with cancer in the late 1980s, he came back to help manage the family business. He eventually took over Suburban Tire with his mother and brothers in 1990. Over the years, the business has grown. Today, Gordon owns a single superstore in Glendale Heights, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago, and says culture is king when it comes to his success. Welcome to Johnny G and Friends. I'm Johnny G, and on today's podcast, we're joined by Gordon Leffler, owner of Suburban Tire in Glendale Heights, Illinois, pretty close to where I grew up as a kid in Chicago. Gordo, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks, John. It's an honor to be here.
So, Gordon, I've known you for over 20 years. Do you remember the first time we met?
I do, John. The first time we met was pretty uneventful. It was May of 2000. Myself, my brother, you, Bill Pransky, and Mark Polk sat in this very office so we could sign so Suburban Tire could become a direct dealer of Bridgestone Firestone products. And that was a great moment in our history. The second time we met was a little more memorable. It was in February of 2001. And as you know, there was a Ford Explorer issue where Ford made the wrong recommendation on the PSI on a short wheelbase vehicle known as the Explorer. So, there was a little recall of 14 million tires. I don't really personally think it was the fault of Bridgestone Firestone. I think it was more the fault of Henry Ford's company, but that's debatable. But what happened in our second meeting, John, you had called me and said, we need to have breakfast. And I thought, great, Johnny G wants to come visit Gordon and have some conviviality and a great conversation. We sat down and you said, boys, you're a direct dealer now, and you haven't bought anything since August of 2000. It's time for you guys to decide what you want to do. Either ship or get off the pot. Because we've got this thing under control. And you're either going to be with us or you're going to be with the other guys. And you need to make a decision. And from there, we decided to stay direct with Bridgestone Firestone and support the brand.
Well, appreciate that. Yeah, those were good times and tough times, but all's good here. And so let me talk about your starting in the business with your brothers, early age. What was your first job at Suburban Tire?
Well, my dad opened the doors for the first time September 15th of 1976. Like all young kids that grow up in the family business, I was 10 years old, sweeping floors. 11 to 13 years old, I started fixing loose tires and doing odd things around the shop. By the time I was 13, I think I really knew how to change tires. I remember racing my brother to see how fast we could do a four-pop individually. We get two cars in. Of course, then it was real easy, and the best time was like 9 or 10 minutes that either one of us had. Steel wheels, hubcaps, rubber valve stems. Really, really easy process way back in the late 70s.
Yeah, that's fun. Well, so you started from the bottom up, and unfortunately, your dad, Duke, I only got to meet him one time in the late 80s. We had a meeting together, but I know he played a huge role in your life, Gordon. Describe your dad and what did you learn from him?
Well, John, so that period from 13 to 16 years old, I'm working in the shop after school and on Saturdays. I remember I was in a bowling league at this bowling alley about a mile down the street from the store on Saturday mornings. And my dad wouldn't come pick us up after the league. We would have to take our bowling ball and walk a mile with it to the tire store and change tires on Saturday afternoons. But my dad was, he was a really interesting, extroverted, just a wonderful guy. He was a little bit eccentric. He dressed like John Daly. He loved playing golf. He just loved the tire business. He started out working for Vogue in 1962 and opened the store in 76. So he had left Vogue sometime in 1975 with this idea to be the first private brander tire business in Chicagoland. And we started with the Gillette brand. And my dad was he was a great at marketing and advertising. He was a natural born salesman. And that's where I got that entrepreneurial gene and salesmanship. But he had a rule in the Leffler family. Boys, when you turn 16 till you're 25, you're not allowed to work at the tire store. Well, why is that, Dad? Well, so you'll understand work ethic and not be the spoiled owner's son. So I had all these odd jobs in high school and college. I worked for a roofing company. I worked for an office supply store. I worked at the produce distribution market down in the city called South Water Market, which was just one of the most harrowing summers of my entire life. That was really, really interesting. So I learned a ton of experience. My older brother, Steve, had to go through kind of the same thing. He sold shoes. He sold real estate. He sold shoes. He had all these summer odd jobs. When it came to my younger brother, John, love him dearly, Dad didn't hold his feet to the fire. He said, I'm sick of fighting the battle every summer with you kids having to go get a job and coming back at me and saying, can I just change tires at the tire store? So with John, he kind of let him work at the tire store throughout late high school and college. But what did my dad teach me? I'll never forget this conversation. He said, son, it's not how you run your business day to day, day in, day out when, the 99% of what goes right. It's how you deal with the 1% that goes wrong. When you have a customer complaining, how are you going to take care of that? That says everything about your character and integrity. And he taught me that. What do we do in our business? We focus on the squeaky wheel, that 1% that complains, instead of the 99% that makes this business what it is, so much fun every day. And I've learned over the years, take care of the 1% when it comes up, but really put all your time and effort into that 99%. That's where you make all the money, right?
Yeah. So that's great advice. So Duke, your dad passed away in 1990. You and your family obviously were already in the business, but you kind of were like thrusted into the management of the business. How did that all work itself out?
Well, it was a really, really interesting period. Here's my dad with 6 stores in Chicagoland, very successful. I was 24 when he passed away. Both of my brothers were still in college at this point, and he had called me up about a year before he passed and said, son, I just got your college grades. I was a sophomore in college, and I'll tell you what, your grades aren't that good, and I'm not paying for you to go to school and get C minuses. So you got 2 choices. You can stay there at the University of Iowa and go to the football games and have fun and whatever the heck you're doing. But I'm not paying for it. So you can get a job there and finish putting yourself through school, or you can move back home and learn some of the business from me, because I just got back from the doctor. He diagnosed me with cancer, and I'm not sure how long I have to live.
Wow.
So I was probably 22. So we kind of broke that rule about, working outside the business till 25 with good reason. But when I did move home, John, there was a Kmart store that had opened up about half a mile from my house. And he said, now, before you come learn the business from me, I want you to go work at that Kmart for 6 months.
Really?
I'm like, okay, Dad, all right, I'll do it. Yeah. You know, I'm a young kid. I don't know anything. I go to the Kmart. I apply for a job. And the store manager comes out, well, what do you want to do? I said, I don't know, sweep the floors, be a cashier. I don't know. My dad said this was the stepping stone. He said, wait a minute, you went to college for 2.5 years. You've been in your family business. You seem like you got a lot going on for you. I'll tell you what, you're hired. Start tomorrow. You're my assistant manager. So I went home and I told my dad, hey, I got the job. Great. And they made me the assistant manager day one, Dad. He said, well, you ain't taking that job. You're coming to work at the tire store tomorrow. I didn't know you had all that talent.
Oh, that's a great story. That's a great story. So what are some of the things that you, your brother, your mom, your brothers, I should say, your mom did differently in the business than maybe your dad did?
You know, John, my dad really ran the business by the seat of his pants. I was telling my mom about doing this podcast last night over dinner. And she said, you know, your father would just kind of make up prices when the customer came in. He didn't really have a set price list. He kind of knew what to sell them for, but there was no system or process in place. We didn't have a computer. He didn't even really keep inventory until 1980. So our first 4 years, we didn't even have an inventory book. So after my dad passed in 1990, we really tried to systematize everything, cater to a better clientele, clean up our stores, which were just low rent, inexpensive facilities with a basic 20/20 tire changing machine and a bubble balancer, believe it or not. So we upgraded our equipment, cleaned up our stores, just moved our business into the 1990s and long overdue. In 1994, we computerized everything. That was a huge leap for us. Not a lot of people had computer point of sale systems at that point. And we got the biggest, greatest one out there, and with an accounting software built into it. So that was great. My dad started the business. He was about 90% tires, and the other 10% was alignment and brakes. After he passed, we really got more into automotive service. Obviously, expanded on the brake and alignment side of the business, but started getting into more complicated work, hiring better technicians, doing some diagnostic work back then, which wasn't a huge part of our business, but it grew and grew and grew in the 90s, as you know, as cars got more complicated.
Sure.
We quit selling used tires also, and that was a real big shot in the arm for us because it eliminated the bottom 10% of our customer base, but it allowed us more time to focus on the top half of our customer base and deliver a better client experience. And those people were the people who wanted to build a relationship with the business and keep coming back over and over and over. And we were able to build that trust and build this what I think is an incredible and massive customer base.
That took a lot of guts too, because, when you're selling used tires, it's 100% profit, right? Basically. And other than cleaning them up and put a tag on them. But you're right. You pick up a whole different clientele by not focusing on that business and probably changed the course of Suburban Tire's direction in the most positive way possible. So growing up, who were some of the mentors that guided you throughout your career and how did they influence you, Gordon?
That's a great question, John. Obviously, my dad gave me some entrepreneurial skill and some salesmanship. My mom gave me common sense and practicality. Mm-hmm. My wife gave me a lot of motivation to really succeed and do well. And, I got up every day thinking about my wife and kids and want to do the next right thing and take care of my family as we were all kind of brought up in the business. Back in the 90s, it was all the tire dealers around Chicagoland, around, all the other independent tire dealers. Remember back in the day, every state had a tire dealer association. There was the Illinois Tire Dealer and Retreader Association. I got to know a lot of independent tire dealers that were older than me that knew my dad, and I learned some of the business from them. In 2001, we joined Delnap, which was a buying co-op made up of 75 or so stockholders that were also family-owned independent tire dealerships. They could have one or they could have 25 stores. In that group, as we slowly acclimated and attended more and more meetings, those were the people who really taught me the business. You know, the guys at Delta World, the guys at Martin Tire down in El Paso, the guys at Sun Tire down in Jacksonville, the Greenberg family up in New Hampshire. You know, Barry Steinberg was not in that group, but we were, Barry and the Leffler boys were kind of trying to do the same thing. Loaner cars, focus on premium customers, build these great stores. You don't need a lot of great stores. You know, you don't need big store count if you've got these big stores that are generating a ton of revenue. So that was kind of our focus. So guys like that. And also in 2003, I was given the honor to be invited to join the Tire Alliance group. And I thought, well, geez, we only have 6 stores. How am I going to fit this group with all the big 800-pound gorillas? These guys embraced me. They said, Gord, you're one of us. You like to sell tires. You like to play golf. You love college football. You just bleed our business. And I just got along with those guys, and I learned from them. I make sure that I took the content out of my ears and put it in my mouth at those meetings, and I listened to those guys because they, look at the Tamarchio family where they're at today. That when I got to know them, they were still Mr. Tire, and I learned a lot from those two brothers. I learned a lot from people like you also on the manufacturing side. So everybody in this business taught me something.
Yeah, it's all, anytime you go to meetings and you're with other peers and you pick up other ideas and stuff, it's I'm still seeing it today where tire dealers, when I go visit and take another tire dealer with me, and all of a sudden I'm seeing, he goes, well, he's not watching that car get backed out. There should be somebody standing there. Or maybe when somebody's torquing, aren't you torquing these wheels? Oh, no, well, okay, whatever. So there's always something that you learn from somebody. So I got to tell you, Gordon, as you know, I was just recently at your store, came in for my granddaughter's communion. And so I stopped by your store. I got to tell you, okay, this is me now, Johnny G. I visited your store, and you're in my top 5 retailers that I've visited in my career over 50 years, thousands of retailers I've visited, Gordon. I'm talking about the playroom you have for the kids. I'm talking about your business center. I'm talking about the living room atmosphere with the refrigerator. It's got every drink imaginable. I'm talking about when you walk out to the shop, you can eat off your shop floors, okay? And you got a couple of Zambonis to clean them every night. I'm talking about walking the aisles and seeing every label within a 16th of an inch. I mean, parking spots are all labeled. I mean, you've taken it to an extreme of any retailer that really wants to see how to put an organization together. Visit Suburban Tire in Glendale Heights for sure. I'm serious.
Well, thanks, John. It sounds like you're accusing me of being excessive a little bit, which I am. We have tried to think of everything, 9-foot wide parking spots. Nobody, not one of our customers has ever noticed that. And the only reason I did that is because I was going to these businesses, and more the parking spots were shrinking. So there were a lot of door dings. And when they redid our parking lot, I said, I want 9 feet, 10 preferably. They said 10's too much. You won't have enough spots. So 9 feet it was. But the cleanliness that you saw in the organization, that's baked into our culture. That's not me standing up there every day saying clean, clean, clean. The guys want it clean now. It took time to build that culture. I have an acronym for it. It's CEO, clean, efficient, organized. We start clean, we stay organized, and hopefully efficient throughout the day, and we end clean.
Also,
Just like
also the service manager, though. I mean, normally in a shop, and what is it, 8 or 10 bays you got there?
12.
12 bays. The guy has to look all the way down. No, you put your service manager right in the middle, and he's in a control center sitting up high. He can control all the garage doors. He's got to look at everything. I mean, it's just he's like an air traffic controller,
We built this store in 1995, and we didn't have a lot of money. So we basically built a vanilla box with some hoists in the ground. We really didn't have anything. We maxed out our budget, and we opened the store. And then all these things over time got built into the store. The mezzanine storage area you see in back, we didn't have that till 2009. Now we can store 12,000 tires back there.
Wow.
When you walk through, I think we had 8,000 tires in stock, which is about our comfort level.
That's awesome. Well, again, most impressive. You're in my top 5, and out of thousands of tire dealers over the last 50 years, you're definitely a welcome place to buy tires. So I don't know if you knew, Gordon, but a few miles down the road, back in the late 70s and early 80s, I ran the Hoffman Estate store, and
I've heard that.
Yeah. And, but the tire, as you said earlier, the tire and service business back then is totally different than the tire and service business today. So what's the hardest thing to teach your new teammates about the business today versus back in the 70s and the 80s?
John, you gave me this question ahead of time, and I read that word hardest, and I don't know if there's anything harder or hardest. It's just different. It's a paradigm shift. This is a simple business, but it's not an easy business. We talk about good customer service, right?
Right.
I believe in outstanding client experience. How did we make them feel in the phone call, in the visit, when they picked up their car? Because they're going to remember how they felt when we collected that money from them, rang them out with their credit card. They're going to remember how they felt far after they've forgotten how much it cost them to have those tires, brakes, alignment done. So, this is just doing a lot of things over and over extremely well and being disciplined at doing it. What is the biggest challenge? Wow, that's a great question. I think if everybody just focused on delivering that experience and thought about how did we make them feel, this business might change a little bit. I believe in that Japanese business practice, Kaizen, always be improving. I bring that to work every day, and I talk to my guys about it. It's just getting the needle moving a little bit in the right direction, so we're not backsliding all the time and making those old mistakes we made back in 2007.
So take somebody like me, because I've got a lot of good habits, but I probably also have a lot of bad habits. So when you would take somebody like me, if I would start at your location tomorrow, what do you have a training program in place for new employees? Do they have to do what? Like when you see a waitress has a girl following around her, she's kind of watching the new waitress, how she does stuff. How do you do it there?
So we have a new hire process, and it's broken down into 4 weeks for the general service technician. Typically for an ASE certified technician, most of those guys already have some certs and some training. So we just teach them our culture. And then when we're training a new counter sales person, we take them through an eight-week process, and they actually start in a tire shop, go to the warehouse, go to deliveries and making wholesale calls. Then they go and work in the service booth for a little bit. Then they get some exposure at the counter. Then they learn our customer base and computer system. So that's an 8-week process. So we actually do have some processes and procedures for training there.
Oh, that's great. No, it's I could tell. I mean, I walked in, I could feel positive vibes, what it said to me is, if I need to buy something, whether it's tires, brakes, shocks, alignment, whatever, I have no issue spending my money here at your location, and I'm sure that's the message you want to get, and you could see that instantaneously as soon as you walk into a business. Do you want to spend your money at this restaurant, et cetera, et cetera? And it makes it so much easier. It's a no brainer. I wouldn't look at the prices because I already know I'm going to get what service and quality I want.
Yeah, tires are highly competitive. So a customer, you might lose a customer if you're $10 higher than, say, that company from Scottsdale down the street. But as long as your tire prices are in line and you're within reason of automotive service work, you're never going to lose them for that. And our customers become family over time, just like the people we work with. They're here 3-4 times a year, right? Some of them have 2, 3, 4, 5 cars. Some of these guys are in every 3 weeks with one of the kids' cars going back to school. So we get to know these folks really, really well. And, there's 25 employees in this building. We're work family, man. We spend as much time together as we do with our family at home. But building a great culture is really important.
Yeah, it shows, Gordon. It shows. Hey, I want to thank you so much for being a part of Johnny G and Friends and taking the time out of your hectic day to do this podcast with me. Thank you so much, Gordon.
Well, John, this is what makes the tire business great, doing stuff like this. Back in the day, there used to be a ton of trips. Now we get to do a podcast, and I'm okay with that. Thank you for having me on.
All right. Be safe, my friend. Take care.
Thanks, John.
You don't need magic to disappear for a while, because Firestone tires were built for ticking off mile markers. Firestone Destination LE3 tires. For 70,000 miles of exploring. Whatever you drive, drive a Firestone.